Hi, and welcome back to this week's Parsha share on Sefer Tal Chermon for this week's Parsha of Vayishlach. In this week's Parsha, Rabbi Aviner addresses himself to a broad question in Yaakov's life, as many of those issues in the broad question come to a head in our Parsha. And that is the question of the complexity and challenge of Yaakov's life. It just seems that at every single turn, from birth all the way until death, Yaakov constantly meets challenges, adversities, hurdles that he has to overcome. Nothing is ever simple. His life is, as Rav Aviner points out, malei sibuchim. And he asks, Ma ha'erech shel hasibuchim ha'ela? Ha'im yesh lem tochen chiyuvi? What is the purpose and the point of all these complexities of his life? He is faced with perhaps more complexity than any of the avos. Rav Aviner answers, and he says, "Hasibuchiyut shayechet leteva hametziut." Complexity in life is just part of the nature of life itself. It's part of the nature of creation. Zohi uvda pshuta she'olam hazeh maleh sibuchim. It's a simple fact that this world is full of complexity. Some people have a little more, some people have a little less, some people see it, some people don't, but it's filled with complexity. Amnam ha'elokim asar adam yashar v'hema bikshu chishbonot rabim, as it says in Sefer Kohelet, Hashem made people very straight, but they request all kinds of complexities. Nachon, which means it's true. Shebeshorosh ha'elyon hadvarim yasharim. God creates things straight as an arrow. God is yashar. His creations are yashar. From the heavenly perspective, things start out very straight and simple. But in the reality, as they come to the fore, as they are revealed in this world, right from the place God creates them, as they trickle down and reveal themselves in this world, they reveal themselves as filled with complexity. The million-dollar question of life is how we react to these challenges and complexities. And he points out three different approaches. Gisha Rishona Omeret, Ein Ra, Hakol Tov, Harahu Rak B'dimyon Kozev. He says the first approach is absolute ignorance. You say to yourself, you fool yourself, you delude yourself, you convince yourself in some way that there is no complexity to life, there's no evil in life, there's no bad in life, everything is wonderful, everything is great. You live in this fantasy world that you create for yourself. He says, Zo Shitata Shikor, in some way is the approach of the drunkard who gets so drunk that all they see is good and happy and wonderful. They don't see anything really that's around them. They live in their own fantasy world. Hagisha Shniya goes on and on to describe this approach, but I'm cutting to the chase. The second approach is Mekira bekach sheyesh tzibuchim ba'olam, ulam nichna'ati lahem mitoch hashkafa shel ma afshar la'asot kach hazeh. The second approach is not to ignore the complexities of the world or the challenges, not to pretend that they're not there, but to accept that they're there and to totally submit, to totally give in, to totally acquiesce to the challenges that come your way. You're right, life is so hard, what can I do? I might as well fail, I might as well give up. That's approach number two. Hagisha shlishiti gishata ma'avak. The third approach is the approach of the fight, of taking those challenges head on, battling them, overcoming them, triumphing, and pushing on in life. We know there are difficulties, we know there are challenges, we meet them head on, we don't ignore them, we don't delude ourselves, we don't live in a fantasy world, and simultaneously we don't give in and give up. We say, bring it on, I'm going to fight this, I am going to triumph against adversity. So he says that in reality, all three of the avos actually take approach number three. They all take the ma'avak approach. They all battle complexities and challenges, but they each do it in very different ways. And in a certain sense, the Avram approach and the Yitzchak approach are not the common approach of life and are more difficult to achieve. The Yaakov approach is most real. What are their three approaches to the ma'avak, to the struggle with challenge in life? He says, Avraham, his approach was also to meet challenge head on and to fight it. After all, he had many challenges. For example, the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings. He jumps in and he fights a battle. That's a challenge. That's adversity. That's complexity. But Rav Aviner points out that Avram is like the larger-than-life figure. It's almost like when he takes on a challenge, he's so immense and so great and so heroic that he floats above the challenges, right? One singular person, maybe with some helpers, maybe not, can go in and wage war against multiple strong kings of the area and prevail against them? What person can stand up and say, now I will not take one thing from the spoils of this war so that no one can say Ani Hasharti at Avram. He takes on challenges. I'd rather live without that stuff. I'd rather go without the spoils. I'll put myself out there for a load. He puts himself in the midst of challenge. He takes it on. He is the quintessential ma'avak person. He's the personality who takes the third approach. I'm going to fight. But the result of his fight is that he hovers above it. He's so great and so grand, it's almost unreal to us. It's like this heroic, magical figure that we can't even recognize. That's the approach of Avram. Yitzchak also meets challenges in his life. Although he starts off life in a more simplistic fashion, he meets challenges like the challenges of the fights over the wells with the Plishtim, with Avimelech. And his approach is also to insert himself and to overcome struggles and challenges, not to ignore it, not to fantasize, and not to give up. But as opposed to Avram, who floats above these challenges as the massive, larger-than-life heroic figure, Yitzchak also faces it, but he sidesteps it. They challenge him on these wells, he goes on, he digs another well. Challenges him in those wells, he digs another well. He keeps doing and doing until he prevails. That is also an approach. That's not avoidance. Avoidance is, saying, I'm going to pretend this challenge doesn't exist. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to give in to it. It's not avoidance. He is engaged in the struggle, not as this heroic figure who triumphs like the war hero like Avraham, and, the person who goes out in the world and brings monotheism and the chesed and the outgoing. He's the gevura personality. He's the inward personality. He takes all of that challenge, goes straight into himself. I'm going to be solid and core. I'm going to continue in my mission no matter what people do to me. That may not be a head-on struggle. He may not take on his challengers and, put his fist to their face. He may say, okay, you have that, well, I'm going to go on to another one. But that's also a form of struggle. That's saying, I'm going to prevail. Maybe not to your face, but I'm just going to keep plodding along in my mission. You take away this well, I'm going to go to the next one. And just keep trying, carrying on. He doesn't let the challenges get in his way. That's also a form of struggle. But Yaakov's approach, the third approach, is entirely different than that of Avram and Yitzchak. Yaakov is not an I'm going to move on kind of person like Yitzchak. And he's not this heroic figure who magically takes over everything like Avram. Yaakov nimtza betoch hasibuchim velo me'alehem. Yaakov engages in struggle, but he is like in the midst, in the depths of the struggle and the challenge. He doesn't hover above them. Yaakov Avinu nichnas be'ovi hakore. He goes into the depths of the fight itself. Ein hu nichna. He doesn't give in. Hu mistabech aval nilcham. He gets caught in the complexity, but he fights. Hu Yaakov. He is the quintessential Yaakov, the person who is okev acharei hametziut ve'orev la kedei lihitarev berega hanachon u'latot et pnei hadvarim latovat inyano. He goes around and around, and he uses whatever means possible to hit life at the moment where he can get in and triumph. He battles this way, he battles that way, he pushes a little, he finds himself in the midst of the struggle, in the midst of the labyrinth, right? If you look at the labyrinth model, I guess that's a good physical image of a challenge that you're met with. You're going on the road of life, and all of a sudden you have all these roads. You don't know which one to take in order to get to your destination. So if we're continuing that analogy, Avram's the person who jumps over, takes this super strength running jump, and he catapults himself above, skips over the labyrinth altogether, and prevails. Yitzchak says, okay, I have a labyrinth in front of me, may take me a little bit longer, but I'm going to go around this way. I'm going to take the longer route and avoid this complexity altogether. He's just going to skip around the maze and come out on the other side. Yaakov is the one who goes through it. He says, no, I'm not going to take the longer road. I'm in the midst of this. I'm going in full force. I don't have the strength of Avram to jump over it. I'm not quite as, interested in sidestepping like Yitzchak. I'm going to go straight in, and I'm going to go to that labyrinth. And when I go through and I meet a brick wall, I'm going to go the other way. And when I meet a brick wall there, I'm going to go the other way. And when someone chases me down, I'm going to go a third way. And I'm going to get there. It's going to take me time, and I'm going to fight, but I'm going to find that right pathway that gets me to my destination. Hu nilcham. He fights, and he fights directly in the midst of the fight, not above it and not around it. But what Rav Aviner points out is Hu nilcham v'nivneh mitoch hasibuchim. He becomes built by the challenges. He becomes stronger through the challenges. You see that through every challenge of of his life. For example, the greatest challenge which he's emerging from in our Parsha, which is the challenge of living in Lavan's home. He goes down to Lavan's home and he meets the next challenge, right? Leaving home is already difficult. Running away from your brothers trying to kill you, that's also difficult. Those are all complexities. Then he gets to Lavan's home and the scene is more complex. He gets to Lavan's home and he realizes he's living with someone who's going to trick him, who's going to try to get his way, he's going to try to pull one over him. And he pushes forward. He says, okay, well, I'm going to push through. You tell me to work, I'm going to work. You don't like that, I'm going to work again. But what happens in the end? As he leaves, Vayishlach, katonti mikol hadvarim. He says in our parsha, as he leaves Lavan's home, katonti mikol chasadim umikol ha'emet asher asita davdecha. He says, I can't believe what you've given me, God. Ki b'makli avarti atar yaden hazeh v'atayiti l'shnei malchanot. When I went down in the midst of the complexity, as I took on the battle full force, I had nothing. And now as I fought, and it wasn't easy. I was in the midst of those complexities. I didn't rise above them, and I didn't skirt around them, and I also didn't ignore them or fantasize, and I didn't give in. I fought, and I fought in the midst of the challenge. But you know what? I've emerged built even stronger. I've emerged even more successful. He comes back with 2 wives and 2 shfachot. He went down for Rachel, and he got Rachel and Leah. Not only did he get Rachel and Leah, he got Bilhah and Zilpah, and he got 12 children, and he got 12 tribes, and he got wonderful wealth and wonderful success, and prevailing over Lavan, and now prevailing again over Esav. He becomes built through the challenges. He takes on challenges head on. V'nivneh gam mizeh. He becomes built through that challenge. Rav Aviner fascinatingly has exposed us to various different ways to meet the very real challenges that we face in life. There's the shikor approach of fantasizing nothing exists. That's not very productive. There's the I give up approach, also not very productive. And then there's the approach of the avos. But within the approach of the avos, of heading towards that challenge and fighting to prevail, there are a lot of nuances. And I think that's what's fascinating about Rav Aviner's essay over here, is that he shows us that there's not just one approach to fighting. There are many approaches to fighting. There's the Avram approach of sometimes, using your superpowers and strength, just jump above it, just go full force, exert all the effort. There's sometimes the Yitzchak approach, this fight is not worth it. I'm going to fight to prevail, but not head on. I'm just going to go around it, find a different way to do this. And sometimes there's the Yaakov approach. I'm headed right into it. And it might bring me down, but in the end it's going to build me up. It's going to strengthen me, and I am going to prevail. I think what we can learn from this, that Yaakov is ultimately the one who is the most relatable model. Yaakov is therefore the one that builds the Shvatim and builds Am Yisrael. He is our progenitor. And of course, Avram and Yitzchak are also our progenitors, but Yaakov is the most immediate one. Yaakov is the one who was chosen by Kadosh Baruch Hu, not just to continue to go through the Bechira process, as Rabbi Liebtag points out. One son is chosen, one son is not, but he's the one that gives birth to Am Yisrael, because he's the relatable model. He's the model that most of us, the pathway that most of us often take as we face the challenges of our life. But I think in the end of the day, these models are helpful to us because I think they can afford us different options as we face the complexities in our everyday lives. Sometimes we might take the Avram approach, sometimes the Yitzchak approach, sometimes the Yaakov approach, and sometimes a combination of all three. What it teaches us is that there are multiple ways to fight the good fight. There are multiple ways to triumph and to prevail against the complexities that inevitably come our way. May we all be successful at overcoming them, the small ones and the big ones, if unfortunately they do come our way. And if we are able to prevail, each of us should be built like Yaakov. Each of us should grow from those experiences like Yaakov, and in the end, emerge even more great, even more successful than we were before. Shabbat Shalom.